Hi, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Taufik bin Nazri, and today I would like to present about liquidity ratios that divided by two part, that is a current ratio and also quick ratios. Okay, current ratio is a liquidity ratios that measure a company abilities to pay short-term obligation or those due within 1 year. Calculation of current ratio is current asset divided by current liabilities. Okay, based on the bar chart among the 5 companies, in 2019 and 2021, Hi-O Enterprise Berhad have the most liquidity with current ratio more than 30 times and 5 times respectively to cover the claim of short-term creditor with their current asset by comparing to another companies. However, Panasonic Manufacturing Malaysia Berhad has a good liquidity with current ratio more than 5 times but in trend up and down over the 3 years. The company with least liquidity are Aeon, Petronas Dagang Berhad, and Popcorn Holding Berhad with current ratio below than 3 times respectively, that will less likely able to cover the claim of short-term creditor with their current asset. Okay, next we go to the quick ratio. Quick ratio, also known as a acid test ratio. This kind of ratio measure the firm's abilities to pay off its short-term obligation without having rely on the sale of inventory and prepaid that tends to be the least liquid of the current asset. Okay, calculation of quick ratio is like current asset minus inventories minus prepaid expense. The total of that divided by the current liabilities. Okay, based on the pattern of quick ratio in 2019 and 2021, Hi-O Enterprise Berhad has the most liquidity with quick ratio more than 7 times and 3 times respectively to cover the claim of short-term creditor with their current asset by comparing to another companies. However, the Panasonic Manufacturing Malaysia Berhad has a good liquidity and also stable liquidity with quick ratio more than 4 times but decreasing over the 3 years. Okay, the company with least liquidity are Aeon, Petronas Dagang Berhad, and Popcorn Berhad with quick ratio below than 3 times respectively, that will less likely able to pay off its short-term obligation without having rely on the sale of inventory and prepaid that tends to be the least liquid of the current asset.
Thank you, Taufik, for summarizing about liquidity ratio. Next, Nurin, will explain about profitability ratio. Profitability ratio determines a company capacity to make money in terms of its sales, asset on the balance sheet, operational expenses, and equity. In this assignment, we calculate the profitability ratio using the net profit margin and the gross profit ratio. The percentage of revenue that remains after all costs have been subtracted from sales is known as net profit margin. This margin can help show how much profit a company can make from all of its sales. A high net profit margin shows that the company is effectively pricing its goods and practicing a good cost control. The definition of good margin will differ significantly by industry and company size, but as a general guideline, a 10% net profit margin is regarded as average, a 20% is high, and 5% is low. Based on the data and the chart, the company with the greatest net profit margin, Hi-O Enterprise Berhad, as they have been acquiring more than 20% net profit margin for 3 years running. This demonstrates that between 2019 and 2021, Hi-O made more profit than the competitors. Panasonic Manufacturing Malaysia Berhad had an average net profit margin during these years, as their margin ranged from 99.38% to 11.95%. With net profit margin of 5% or less from 2019 to 2021, Aeon Co. Berhad, Petronas dengan Berhad, and Pohkong Holding Berhad all have a low net profit margin. An organization that has a low net profit margin either has inefficient cost structure or use bad pricing tactic. This company can potentially increase their business profitability by reducing their costs or increasing their net sales. Next, we use the gross profit margin ratio to measure the profitability ratio of this company. The gross profit margin is an indicator of how effectively a business uses labor and raw materials in the cost of manufacturing. The higher the profit margin, the more efficient a company is. It also can be used to determine a company's financial health and compare companies in the same industry or follow company performance over time. In comparison to the other company, Hyo Enterprise Berhad had the highest gross profit ratio during the course of 3 observation years. Aeon Co. Berhad came next, acquiring 40.88% in 2019, 38.84% in 2020, and 39.89% in 2021. Concerningly, Panasonic Manufacturing Malaysia Berhad and Petronas dengan Berhad have gross profit ratio that are under 20%. Pohkong Holding Berhad has the lowest gross profit ratio in these 3 straight years. A high gross profit ratio shows that the business cooperation are producing a healthy level of profit and that the operation are not using an excessive percentage of its revenue. For retailers and manufacturer industry, gross profit margin ratio of 50% to 70% will be seen as healthy. A low gross profit margin indicates that the company ratio percentage is below industry standard and possibly lower than earlier periods. Generally, the company is not earning strong sales price in comparison to the cost of goods sold. A smaller margin can be a sign that a business is underpricing its goods or both. Thank you.
Hi and Assalamualaikum to our lecturer, Dr. Amirul. My name is Muhammad Hafiz and I would like to continue this presentation. In this leverage ratio, I will explain regarding the debt ratio and debt equity ratio. The first one is debt ratio. Debt ratio is financial ratio that measure the extent of company leverage. Debt ratio apply to short account term and long term asset. The lower ratio number means the easily the company to pay the debt. The formula to get the ratio is by dividing total debt with total asset. The lowest ratio record is on 2019 by Pohkong Holding Berhad. However, the following year, the debt ratio is highest. Pohkong Holding Berhad required 3 times of debt against the owner capital. For the other company, chart show fluctuated up and down with minimal differences each year. Another leverage ratio is debt equity ratio. Debt equity ratio, also known as risk ratio, it calculates the total debt against financial liability. The lower ratio means the owner of the business only use minimum fund from creditor for the business. As you all can see, Aeon Company Berhad has the highest ratio for each year, start from 2019 to 2021. This kind of ratio considered as risky compared to the other company in the chart since their ratio is below than 1. Pohkong Holding Berhad in 2019, debt equity ratio is the smallest. This ratio means the business is in good health for investor or business owner for continuity.
Assalamualaikum. So we continue to average collection period, ACP. Average collection period is a ratio that determines the average length of time a company takes in order to collect payments that is clients own in terms of accounts receivable. In order to calculate this ratio for the formula that we need to use for average collection period is account receivable divided by sales and multiply by 360 days. So as you can see at the table above, High-O Enterprise Berhad is the highest average collection for year 2019, 2020 and 2021. The lowest average for 2019 is Pohkong Holding Berhad. For years 2020 is Aeon Co Malaysia Berhad, and 2021 is Pohkong Holding Berhad. So High-O Enterprise Berhad is the highest ACP collection for 3 years. Thank you very much.
Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is Muhammad Atailah Biamri. Today I will present about inventory turnover. So what we know about inventory turnover? Inventory turnover quantifies how frequently a business changes its stock in relation to its cost of sales. In general, a higher ratio is preferable. A low inventory turnover ratio could indicate sluggish sales or overstocking, also known as surplus inventory. On the other hand, the formula for inventory turnover is cost of goods sold is divided by inventories. So, based on the tables, we could see inventory turnover, which is for 5 companies from 2019 to 2021. So, what we can see is Petronas Dagangan Berhad achieved the highest inventory turnover, which is 33.80 to 126.60 times a year, while High-O Enterprise Berhad has the lowest inventory turnover, which is 1.84 to 1.75 times a year. Okay, this suggests Petronas Dagangan Berhad is the most active company in creating sales from inventories, while High-O Enterprise Berhad is the less active company.